Welcome back to Redesigning Life. I am very excited about my guest today, Emma Dunwoody. You are a human design coach, a behavioral specialist. You are one of the favorite voices in blending spirituality and self awareness and science. And lately, I feel like I've heard human design thrown around, especially at me and telling me what I am. I love the idea of human design because of what I do. So I'm excited to have you on. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, I'm super excited. I'm really pumped to talk all things human design and, dive into your chart a little bit too.
This is going to be fun. So, Emma, for people that are for the first time hearing the term human design, can you boil down in like layman's terms exactly what human design is?
Yeah, absolutely. And just as an aside, this literally is my core talent in my design. So, making and my book's even Human Design Made Simple. So, the way I like to talk about human design and really help people understand it is most people understand personality and behavioral profiling. So, perhaps you've done your Enneagram, you've done EDISC, you've done Myers-Briggs. Now, when we do those profiling tools, we do that through answering questions. Okay. So we're actually using the mind. So what we're doing is we're answering questions from a place of who we think we are. So when we get the results, we're going to have a gap. We're going to have a gap between who we think we are and who we really are, who we actually are. Now, human design is the energetic blueprint that sits below our personality and our behavior. So there's no gap. It's actually energetically from our DNA who we have been effectively designed to be energetically in the world. So then what happens from our design is our personality, our identity, our beliefs, everything will be informed from our human design. In many cases, we're playing a lot of our shadows out, but ultimately, it's that blueprint that sits underneath who we think we are.
Okay, so let me get this straight because it's based on where you're born, what time, and the date. But how does just because I was born in Miami, as opposed to born in Australia, how does that change who my personality?
Okay, so the reason we take the birth time and date is because this is a moment in time where there is an energetic imprint made on us, and it's made by these subatomic particles called neutrinos. Now, you can go and look up neutrinos, and there's a $100 million facility in Japan studying neutrinos. They're really important to understanding the universe. But basically, what they do, they are so, so, so tiny. They move through everything, all matter, without, interrupting that matter because they're so incredibly tiny. But as they do, they literally take parts of that matter. So what happens is when we're born, we're actually imprinted with these neutrinos that at that time are also dropping off wherever the celestial bodies are sitting in the universe. They're dropping off that theme. They're dropping off a part of that in us and imprinting us at birth. So this is how, why it matters, because it's really what we're doing is we're reading an exact moment in time and where everything was in the universe at that moment in time, because it's giving us a blueprint of all the themes that we've just been energetically imprinted with as we are birthed into the world.
If I meet another Capricorn, another person who was born on the exact same day, the exact same hospital, the exact same time, they would be very similar to me in that sense. I mean, or they would have to be identical.
They would, yeah. If it was all exactly the same, I mean, we use twins as an example. So often twins are going to have really, really similar designs. But the thing about human design is it's very intricate. It's very, very complicated. So what happens is that there are some readings that go right down to the exact minute. So a twin can be born, a couple of minutes apart, and most of their design will be the same. Sometimes it can be exactly the same, but ultimately, the moment the minute changes, even sometimes the second changes, no, the minute changes, that can bring in a variance to the chart. Yes.
Okay, so I was actually at coffee with 2 of my friends yesterday who are really into human design. They're like, "You have to get your chart read." So, of course, I went online and I did the design, the free there's a million, like, free calculators that you could find, and I was told that I'm a generator. So if somebody plugs it in and they're told I know there's a manifestor, generator, there's a million, like, terms. What does it all mean?
Okay. So, as I said, human design can be pretty complicated. So one of the things that we do is we want to start with the macro. We want to start with almost like the biggest theme or bucket, if you like. I like to call it a bucket. I don't know. That's just who I am. But that is your type. Okay. So when you first learn your human design, you're going to learn that you're one of, there's technically four types and a hybrid. Some people will say there's five types. Um, and this is kind of like, this is your aura. So we now know, people like heart math, a lot of research has now told us that we walk around in this energetic bubble. It's a torus field that comes from our heart, and we call it our aura. Now, our type in human design is literally like the macro theme of that aura. So, how our energy not only moves through the world, but how other people experience our energy. So, we start with this thing called type. So, we have manifestors, generators, manifesting generators, which are our hybrid, projectors, and reflectors. And just at this macro level, it gives us some really simple yet profound information about how we are innately guided and how our energy is actually designed to thrive.
Okay. And so once you plug it all in, it sort of tells you a little bit about your personality type. What does it feel like, I would say, for somebody who understands it to be, I don't know, like in alignment when you find out what you are and you could see kind of how you move, how you make decisions?
I think the biggest piece, like I've been doing this for many, many years now, and I would have unpacked, oh my God, it could be thousands of charts now. I've looked at that many charts. And one of the things that I never hear is, oh, that's a surprise. Wow, oh, that's a surprise. What I hear without fail is, oh my God, thank you. You just gave me a permission slip to be me. So, what it feels like, and for me, I've been in my experiment for, since 2018. I live pretty much in alignment. I've created a life that just flows. It's almost like I just show up, I'm present, and I follow the bouncing ball. So in human design, we'd call that strategy and authority. But ultimately, over the years, I really understand things from, what is my life's work? What is my purpose? What are my superpowers? How am I designed to make decisions? How do I manage my own energy? What's too much? What's too little? How does my physical body want to show up? Where will it thrive? What does my digestion look like? What is going to make my digestive system get the most nutrition out of life? What motivates me? How do I actually see my world? So now, I don't really think about my design or my gene keys much ever, but it's because I'm so, I've experimented now for many, many years. So I just trust the process. The big piece for anyone who's in alignment with their design is you stop trying to be someone that you're not. You stop trying to be the person someone else needs you to be. Things like people pleasing or operating from fear, like all of these things start to fall away because you really begin to see that you as a unique individual are an incredibly important puzzle piece to the whole, universal or global puzzle. And your role is to be that authentic version of you. And when you are, then you're doing everything you can, not only to serve self, but to serve others. So, yeah.
Okay, I have so many questions. What's the difference? And I want to also get into why you got into this in the first place, but I think okay, what is the difference between human design and gene keys? Because I know that people may have not even heard of gene keys either.
Yeah, so the gene keys, which I use all the time. So human design was birthed in 1988, okay? And it was birthed by a person called Ra Uru, or Alan. Um, and when he wanted to launch human design in the UK, he was American. Um, this guy, Richard Rudd, came along and helped him launch human design, bring human design to the UK. Now, ultimately, over time, Richard Rudd did a bunch of teaching, but he actually found that he started to be really focused on what human design calls the gates, which is aligned to the I Ching, which is the Chinese book of changes. And he started to notice that all this information on these gates was coming through him. So he actually said, "Hey, thanks, Ra, but I'm going to press pause on human design. And I've got something that really wants to be birthed through me," which ultimately became the gene keys. So the way that I've heard the two described, which I think is perfect, is it was actually my mentor, Kim, and Richard Rudd talking about this on a podcast. Human design is like the masculine, the structure, the strategy. It's going to go deep into the nuances. It's really the framework. Um, and then the gene keys, I mean, Richard himself is a poet. So when you read the gene keys, it can feel like, what? Like, what? But you have to just sit with it and listen, and you're looking for this resonance. So it's like the feminine. It's like the weather. It's this other part of it that brings a lot more depth. The gene keys looks at every gene key or gate in human design from a perspective of a shadow, a gift, and a siddhic state. So a siddhi is an enlightened state. So it gives us, and for me as a behavioral coach, it gives you the journey. So it shows you, for example, I have gate 37 in my personality sun in human design, and that's the 37th gene key. So what it tells me is it's the shadow of weakness, the gift of equality, and the siddhic state of tenderness. So what that's helped me do over the years is really identify my shadow behaviors, in that shadow of weakness. And it's also given me full permission to step into equality, and like equality really is one of my number one values. But even more than that, tenderness. Because I grew up, thinking that I had to be strong and, make things happen and, I'm a force of nature. But what it taught me over time was actually that tenderness is this really elevated energy that sits in here in me. And I sat with it one day and I'm like, oh my God, I think tenderness is weak. So I can see my shadow playing out, like stopping me stepping into the highest expression of myself. So it really helped me to own the truth about myself and let go of who I had been conditioned to become or to be, and instead step into the superpowers that are innately within me.
But okay, so but astrology's been around forever, for a very,
Mm-hmm.
very long time, and this is fairly new.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like curious as to like two men came up with these teachings.
Well, so here's the thing. Yes, human design came in 1988. But it's actually the synthesis, like the mathematically mapped together of four ancient wisdoms. So Western astrology, the Hindu chakra system, the Kabbalah tree of life, and the I Ching, the Chinese book of changes. So these four ancient wisdoms have been mathematically mapped together. So
So
that
they
in
took it all
itself.
together and put it into one.
Exactly.
Okay.
So often, like if you look at astrology, and I know this was my challenge with astrology, it was a bit hit and miss because it would all depend on the astrologer. It would all depend on the person who's reading the information for you. Um, and it can also, like, there's very wide interpretations. Whereas with human design, it's super specific. Like, I know for me personally, my number one talent, the number one thing I'm here to do in the world is to simplify and facilitate breakthrough. Like, it's very, very specific. So this is where, human design kind of trumps everything else because it's going to get really clear on what it is specifically for you that you're here to do. And there's a lot of different places and a lot of different superpowers. Um, but yeah, the specificity is the real power of human design.
So can you pulled my chart. Yours is being is to simplify. Were you
Mm.
able to see what my gift would be?
Yeah, so your gift is the 32. So the 32, the shadow of the 32 is the fear of failure. So there's this part of you that's deeply, and it comes in as your core wound. So, from a behavioral perspective, you might not be able to find that defining moment in your childhood that you went, oh my God, I'm afraid to fail. It's something that literally you were born in with. So it's this deep challenge. Now, over time, and because you're a 3-5 profile, so the line 3 learns through trial and error. So as a kid, you would be like falling down and getting back up again and, innately kind of breaking things and going, well, it's not always going my way, but I know what works and what doesn't because I've tried everything. So hopefully over the years, that fear of failure has almost been learnt out of you because the line 3 has to learn through trial and error. Or you still have this fear of, failure that just shows up when you really don't want it to. Because ultimately, what your gift is really to know what is the thing that is going to be progressed. You actually have this whole channel. It's called the channel of ambition. And the channel of ambition, and in the shadow of this, it can be about self and greed and, these really self-oriented things. But the moment, and I would guess this is where you are now, the moment that ambition is shifted to a place of meaning, like, hey, this is really important. This is about, the greater good. This is about the collective. This is about the tribe. The moment you step into that, you have this very, profound way of knowing exactly what needs to be progressed. And the truth is that when you know what that is, you actually have a superhuman power to expand and to grow anything, as long as it's aligned to greater meaning for you.
Okay, wait, okay. So, and Emma, like you have to bear with me because I'm going to ask you just questions to clarify. Because I love how you simplify things, but I tell people just like pretend you're talking to a 5-year-old because
I love it.
you say that I have this fear of failure. And yes, but I can pinpoint exactly what happened in my childhood that created that. But you're saying even if I didn't have those situations in my childhood that I can pinpoint, anybody that's born on my day at my time in my hospital would feel this way.
Yeah. So that particular, because it's our core wound, and this falls into a specific part of the chart. Um, this one, it's like, think of it this way. You came in with it, and then your 3D child version of you had an experience to fully go, hey, there it is. But it's actually before that. It was initiated before that, effectively in another lifetime. It's something that you brought in, and it's the thing that will create the diamond. It's the thing that over time it becomes your core talent. It's the gift of preservation. So over time you learn, hey, I'm not going to worry about failure because a lot of things need to fall away for the right thing to be evolved. So this is how your gift, like how your specific diamond is created. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So, okay. Now it's, it's different than astrology, but you're saying that you're born into it because at that time it's ingrained inside of you. So no matter what, it's science.
Mm.
It's
It's
not just
actually
yeah.
It's actually so when we look at a human design chart, if people are familiar, they're going to see on the right-hand side, there's a column that's got a bunch of numbers and gifts on it. You're going to see like all the astrology, um, um, like icons. And then on the left-hand side, there's another list. There's another column. The left-hand side in human design is what we call the unconscious. This is our vehicle. It's innate. It's our soul. It's our soul's purpose. It's um, what we actually in human design, we say like this is our vehicle. This is our physical body, but it's also our soul. And it falls on that side of the chart. And that side of the chart is actually a reading that comes from a moment in time that is about 3 months before we're born. So it's like it's already imprinted into you when your soul comes into the body because we believe I mean, in human design, we talk about it, but it's not just human design. We believe that the soul comes into the body 3 months before we're born. And that's when your core wound kind of imprints. Now, you have loads of shadows. We all have every single gate. So every time you look at your chart and you see a number, there is a shadow. There is a low expression, a fear expression, and then there is a love expression or a high expression, or in the gene keys, we call it the shadow, the gift, and the Siddhic state. So it's not like we just have the one. Um, for you also, your life's work, like this, the biggest energy for you is actually, it's a gate called the gate of the joyous. So for you, it really is, there's a big driver in you, and I believe, just trying to remember your chart off the top of my head, that you have the whole channel. So you have this energy that is all about correction. So you want to correct the things that aren't working because you want to experience more joy, not just for you, but for the collective. But this gate of the joyous, everything in your design filters out through the gate of the joyous. So it's always going to have a little bit of a sprinkle of, wanting to bring more joy to life. Does that resonate with you?
Yes. Okay, okay, back to the whole timing things again. Bear
I
with me,
love it.
I'm sorry.
It's all good.
So, let's just say, so you're saying that this was kind of imprinted before I was born, but let's say that I was born a C-section and the nurse took forever to get me out of the belly, or the doctor, and so now I wasn't born at 10:18, I was born at 12, whatever the case may be. So now the timing's off. But you're saying that this happened. So can you explain to me the timing, like how sometimes there's human error or whatever that changes the time that you're born or your planned C-section?
Yeah.
So are you saying that that's still imprinted no matter what when you take your first breath?
Yes. So from our perspective, like all the misadventure, let's say, is already known by the soul. So the soul knows when to come in. Us in the 3D reality, we're all banging around trying to make things happen, but really we live in a quantum reality. It's much bigger than that. Time doesn't exist the way we think it exists. The moment is the moment, the past, the present, the future. So yeah, it doesn't matter what time you were born. It's the time you are always going to be born. I'll give you
Okay.
an example.
Yes, please.
My youngest son, for example, right? So I actually had a miscarriage 2 years after my eldest. And at the time, I remember thinking, oh, thank God, thank you, body, because I'm not ready. And then when my second son was born 2 years later, um, I kind of knew at the beginning, but then over the years, I would test with any sort of intuitive, anyone who muscle tests, anyone that could get me a clear answer, because I just felt that the miscarriage I had was still this same child. It was still Oscar, my baby. Now, the thing that's crazy when you look at Oscar's chart is, and he was born by emergency cesarean. So he didn't get to come out on his timing. So not only did he not get to come in the first time, but he also got taken out before he was ready. And then when you look at his chart, he has this huge, and even like his core wound is all about timing. It's all about him choosing when instead of other people telling him when. So when you actually, and I love patterns and I'm very into, what's going on here. So really, like Oscar literally came into this lifetime on everyone else's timing, and he's now in this life learning to go, you can all back up. I'm going to do things on my own time, because he's got to learn that, because ultimately it'll be how he helps and serves others.
Emma, what I love that story. Thank you for sharing that.
Mm.
How did you even get into this?
Yeah. So at the time, I was like a performance coach. I was working with the C-suite. My business was focused on corporate leaders. I ran workshops and I used other behavioral and personality profiling tools. And I was in a time of my life where I had completely transformed my life. I'd healed depression and panic disorder. I had left an advertising career, retrained as a master coach, had this business growing on the side. I had 2 kids. We'd moved from the country to Sydney. Like, my whole life was like going the way I thought I wanted it to go, but I still felt like something was missing. I felt, and the word I used was purpose. It's like, now I know I'm on the right path, but there's something specific that's still missing. So I went off and walked an 800 kilometer, so 500-mile pilgrimage in Spain called the Camino, to really try and find my purpose. And I got to the end of it and I was like, okay, I feel like I know myself better than I've ever known myself. This is great, but I still feel like something's missing. So I was like, universe, you just whatever it is, make it obvious and I promise I'll do it. And when I got home within a 48-hour period, all of a sudden this thing, human design, kept knocking at my door. Like, I got emails, a friend asked me about it. And back then, no one was talking about human design. And I'd been introduced to it twice before, but I'm like, yeah, I'm spiritual, but I'm totally in the closet. I'm not like taking this to my CEOs. Like, no.
They're gonna think
And
you're crazy.
exactly right. And I didn't like the language. Again, I'm a behavioral coach, so language is so important, and the original knowledge is very, negative and limiting, sort of limiting language. So I put it down. But then when it came to me, I was like, okay, I did promise that I would follow this. And I just Googled like leading expert in human design in Australia. And this particular person, and there was only one, and she kind of trained with the original human design teachers, and she lived 10 minutes away from me. So the next day, I find myself having coffee with this woman, and I've never met her before in my life. And she's reading my chart, and she's seeing me clearer than anyone has ever seen me before. She's languaging things that I've felt inside since I was a child, but I was never brave enough to say out loud. So in that moment, I was like, okay, well, shit, this is it. I have to commit to this. And so I just committed to running the experiment, because the other beauty of human design is it's not a dogma, it's an experiment. So that's what
Can you
my book's
explain
all
what that
about.
means? Because this is the second time you've said that. What does that mean?
It means that I'm not here to tell you who you are. Human design is not here to tell you who you are, but it's going to give you a framework. And if you experiment with that framework, all you got to do is go, is my life better or is it not? Because if life's better, then go for it. Keep running with it. Keep experimenting. Keep getting to know yourself deeper. If it's not, put it down. Don't worry about it. Just move on.
Okay,
Um,
so you start running with your experiment.
yes. And I remember asking my first CEO, and I'm like, and he's like the classic, like he's in his, I think he was like, late 40s, running this, multi-million dollar, I think like $100 million business, very straighty 180. And I was like, well, I'm working with this new modality and I'm having a lot of success. I'd really love to experiment with it with you for a bit. Would you mind? And he's like, yeah, let's go for it. And I asked him for his birth time and details. And the crazy thing was, it was almost like I was waiting for it. I was waiting for him to say something. He's like, yeah, here you go. I was like, okay, like didn't flinch. Um, and then I started integrating, and I initially was really focused on leadership, and I introduced it with all my leaders. Not one of them flinched, and all their leadership, like they were already getting great results, but their leadership transformed almost overnight, and their results and their teams transformed. So that was when I was like, okay, this thing really works, not just for me, but for others. So as I experimented in my own life, I just followed the bouncing ball. So my pivotal moment was I already had a podcast, and I was in the shower one day where I get so many of my downloads, like most
Same,
people.
same,
Yeah,
same.
right. And I just hear in my mind, you've got to change the name of your podcast to the Human Design Podcast. And my ego's like, no, I don't. I don't know enough. Who am I? Like, it goes off. And then I realize, oh, I'm a manifesting generator. I just had an insight, so I can't act on it. It's just mental energy. I've got to wait for something out there to respond to. And I think on some level I was being a bit cocky, like, see, I can't act on it anyway. And my ego was almost okay with that. And then the next day I was on the phone to a mentor of mine who I'd introduced human design to. And he just said, Emma, you have to do a podcast on this. And I was like, what? How did that just happen? And of course, my whole body lit up. I slept on it because I'm an emotional authority. That's how I make decisions. And sure enough, I just got green light, green light, green light. So I did it. And I went from being the ultimate hustler. I worked so hard. I pushed, I forced, I built, I did all of those things to moving into flow. My business leads me. It tells me where we want to go. Like, what's the next project? Even, I think about writing my book. It just happened. It just unfolded because I followed my human design. I followed my strategy and authority. I know who I am. I'm authentically me. Like, if you meet me here or on the street in Byron Bay, I'm the same human because, I've got rid of all that conditioning that I was taught I needed to be, or who I needed to be, or how I needed to act, or even business, how I needed to succeed in business. And now I know none of you can tell me how I'm designed to succeed. I can help everyone else find out how they're designed to succeed, and I know how I'm designed to succeed. And that's really how, my whole life has really unfolded.
And now I'm like so curious to really dive into my report because I wonder I very much empathize with what you were talking about when you're saying that you're a hustler because that's how I feel like I am. But then sometimes Emma, it's like I feel like I push, 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 and then finally I get so exhausted, I let it all go, and then it all comes in
Yep.
like a wave.
Yeah.
So
And the biggest thing for you is because you're a generator, what you've got to really pay attention to is the things that you have energy for. Now, what that means is because most generators, before they come to human design, they're just saying yes to everything. But you have, like, your gut knows in every moment, yes, I have energy for something. Like, you'll move towards it, you'll nod. You're giving me a sacral response right now, just nodding at me. Um, or no, I don't have energy for it, and you'll back off or whatever. The biggest challenge for you is actually going with the clear yes or no in the moment. Because if you stay with the yes and you say no when it's a no, what's going to happen is you won't burn out and you will actually increase in energy. You'll have more energy for the things that you want to build. Because ultimately, as a generator, you're here to build. And as you're building, and I often say building the new paradigm, building the new world, you're going to develop a mastery of the things that light you up. And you specifically, because you're a 3-5 profile, you are here to share your experiences. You're here to call out what doesn't work because you've tried everything and you know
I
exactly what
have
doesn't
tried
work,
it all.
right?
I just finished writing my book, and in one of the chapters I wrote that I have tried everything from talk therapy to I drove to San Bernardino into a garage to get beaten in the back of my head with basil for $121 because I have tried it all.
Exactly. And that's why people are drawn to you. They want to hear from you what works and what doesn't work. And then you have this 5 in your profile. And the 5, and I actually have a 3-5 profile like you too. So what happens is we go out, we have all these experiences, we discover what works and we discover what doesn't work. And then our line 5 wants to what's called universalize it. So we then, in the line 5 is all about impact and like global impact. Like, these are not people that want to play small, they want to play big. And the line 5 wants to take all these experiences and tell everyone so that everyone else can learn from your experience. And that line 5 is, a friend of mine says, is like, just give a line 5 a microphone. Like, off you go, just give them a microphone. They love a microphone and they're going to tell you everything that you need, like all the solutions that you need to help you move forward.
Oh my gosh, I could talk to you for hours. So Emma, now let's talk about your book because you started off saying that your whole thing is to simplify, and I know that your book really sort of makes this easy for people to understand because I really have heard of human design, and when I got the report, when I just saw it, it just seems so complicated. So can
Mm.
you talk to us a little bit about your book?
Yeah, sure. So, and you can go onto our website, so emmadunwoody.com, and get your free chart there.
So
And
Emma
again, it's,
Dunwoody, and for anyone listening, I will have this in the show notes, how to get in touch with Emma as and her Instagram and all the goodness.
yeah, because we actually, the free report, and you can get a paid report as well, is all simple language. It's all a way, because my ultimate goal, and this is the goal of the book, is we want to take human design mainstream. We want to take it out of the woo, the esoteric, the fluffiness, and we actually want kids to have it when they go to school. Like, my goal is that my grandchildren will go to school knowing their design, and that's how they'll be educated, because we're just not designed to operate the same as each other. So ultimately, what the book is all about is giving you all the macro that you need and then specifically stepping through how to experiment with each part of that. So your type, and as a part of your type, you have a thing called a strategy. So both you and I, your strategy is to respond. So a lot of your life, you would have been taught, like I was, you got to go out and initiate. You got to go take massive action. You got to get stuff done. But it's not true. Most of the global population are designed to respond in some way. So for you and I, we are waiting for the sacral to go, yes, I have energy for something. So you might have inspiration, or your intuition tells you want to go in a direction, but you don't act on it until something in your external world shows up and you're like, oh, yes, I have energy for that. And you go for it. So we start just by experimenting at this top level. Then the book goes into authority. So human design talks about getting out of our head when it comes to decision making and into the body. When we make decisions from the mind, so from thinking, we're doing it from the subconscious mind. So it's accessing the past. Okay, it's just like AI. It's accessing the past, all the information, all the experiences, everything it's been told, and it makes a decision from there. But we actually want to make a decision from something greater, like from the quantum field, which is the past, the present, the future. So what human design does is it teaches your own unique way of making decisions. So for you, it's sacral. So it's all about, yes, I have energy for this, or no, I don't. And one of the big things to do is just to learn to go with the yes, go with the no, and stop asking yourself why.
Yeah.
Because you don't need to know why. You just have to follow what you've got energy for. So then again, the book is going to take you through how exactly to experiment with your authority. Then we're going to talk about profiles. So everyone has two numbers in their chart. So you and I are both a 3-5. You could be a 1-4. Sorry. You could be a 1-4 or a 6-2. And now that's going to give you the next layer. Now, these two numbers are going to give you two of the most significant themes in your life. It's how you learn, it's how you teach, it's how you serve. It's, these significant themes of how you move through life. So for you, you're the experiential learner. You're always experiencing things. And often for you, I always remember people would say, do you have any questions? And I would never have any questions about anything until I'd had an experience of it. The moment I've had an experience of something, I'm like, okay, I have 50 questions. But you have to have the experience. So once we understand these two numbers, then we really understand how we move through life. And a line 1 is the investigator. They're all about details and knowledge, like just learning as much as they can. The 2 is the naturally talented, or it's called the hermit, but I call it the gifted child. These are the people that need to follow what comes easily. The 3 we've covered, where the experiential learners, it's all about what does and doesn't work. Then the 4 is all about relationships. So these are the people that lead from within. Everything comes through their network. Then we have the 5, which is the healer, the leader, the power, and all about the solutions. And then we have the 6, which is the visionary. So the visionary, the line 6, or the role model, looks at everything that the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 have done. And then they're like, that's epic. But now I'm visioning a new world, and they initiate that cycle all over again. So then we just get to experiment with our profile. Now, as we're learning these things about ourselves, one of the cool things is we start to let go of what we're not. And I'll give you a simple example for me personally, because it might resonate with you. So as a 3-5, I don't need to know the details. And one of the things that I tried really hard on in my early entrepreneurial world, until I met human design, was I was always trying to get all the T's crossed and the I's dotted. And that's just not who I am. Like, I'm meant to be messy. I'm meant to make mistakes, and I'm a manifesting generator. So there's more of that. I'm meant to break things. Um, so the moment we start to understand ourselves, we start with type, we go to strategy, then we go into authority, then we go into profile, then we start to understand our centers. What's actually happening is not only are we aligning to what is correct for us, but we are letting go of what's not correct for us. So we're actually also reconditioning our subconscious mind, because when we know something is true, like know it in our cells, it's much easier to let go of the unresourceful or limiting beliefs and identities and all of those sort of things without all the heavy lifting. Because there's a lot of people out there spending so much time on, reprogramming or letting go of limiting beliefs. And really, our focus is what creates our reality. So if we know what we want to focus on, so we're going to focus on our gifts, we're going to focus on our superpowers, we're going to focus on the things that we're here to serve and how we move through life, then we're actually only going to, when we hit the speed hump, what is the limiting belief? What is the fear? We can just address it and then move on. So I think that's one of the things I love about human design and the gene keys as well. It gets us out of this habit we've created of constantly looking at what we perceive is wrong with us. By the way, there is nothing wrong with us. We are not broken, and actually gives us the opportunity to go, okay, well, what am I focusing on? What should I be focusing on? Who am I really? And the moment we feel it, it's like you lock into the truth of who you are.
So once you can go to emmadunwoody.com and you get your numbers, the book will act almost as an encyclopedia for those numbers.
100%. Yep.
Great.
And it's
Great.
got like all the gates up the back. It's got all the centers. It's got
How fast can I
everything.
get that book in my hands?
Yeah, well, quickly. I think it's on Amazon, I think.
Great.
So yeah, yeah.
Emma, I could talk to you for hours. This has been so fascinating for me and such a powerful conversation. I'm so grateful that you joined me. Anybody who's listening, as I said, the podcast, the Human Design Podcast with Emma, will be in the show notes, as well as a link to her website and to the book. Please rate and review Redesigning Life to help these conversations going. Emma, this has been fantastic. Thank you for also reading, getting me my chart. I'm going to download the book now because I feel like that's going to be my homework tonight to figure out who the heck I am a little bit better.
Yeah. I love it. And thank you. Thank you so much for having me. And ultimately, I just want to empower everyone to realize how beautiful they are and how powerful they are. And really, once we all come back to our authenticity, then we're really creating a completely new world. So I'm super excited for you to get the book, to dive in and just see how epic you are.
Oh my gosh, I will keep you posted. My
Yeah,
my
I
my
love it.
fellow 3-5.
Yeah, exactly.